That moment when the universe decides to bet against you, and you smile back. That's how it was the day the Vhal made Earth irrelevant, and I, a worn-out engineer, became the missing piece to prove humanity hadn't thrown in the towel yet. My name is Ekaro Meneza's night shift at Aurora Edge Station, humanity's last century on the edge of the Orion Cloud. Officially, we were there to listen to the silence. Unofficially, we were the last copper wire between an impatient alien fleet and the inner colonies. The Vhal had what we lacked: numbers, ships, mineral patience. We had what they lacked: stubbornness, and a creativity bordering on irresponsibility. On that night of hydrogen and cold coffee, the main array caught a signal buried in impossible static. It wasn't Vhal code. Worse, it was something ancient, deep as if the vacuum itself was coughing up memories. The station's AI Argo paled in graphs, a pre-stellar artifact, dormant, waking less than 1 0 away. And the Vhal, of course, had already turned their bows toward it. Vhal don't talk, they announced. Surrender to efficiency, said the last transmission we received hours before. Their efficiency was cutting knots and burning bridges, then drawing maps in the ashes. There was no time for evacuation. There was time for a bad idea. Argo, what does this artifact do? I asked. It answers, the AI said. Questions no one should be asking. One question, then, how does a handful of humans hold a wall of metal and bone against a tide? The answer came from the dustiest shelf in the lab, a prototype of gravitational entanglement that had never worked outside spreadsheets. The plan, whisper a forbidden question to the artifact and hope it whispered back. In Vhal, you want to turn the enemy into an audience? Argo sounded almost amused. If they come as judges, we'll become the stage. As the Vhal ships appeared like glowing lice on the event horizon of my fear, I went down to the core. The artifact was a sphere the size of a room, made of a matter that refused to reflect light like everything else. It seemed to absorb attention. The moment I stepped in, I felt the pressure behind my eyes, as if a giant book were opening inside my head. Argo, keep the station in ghost mode. No weapons, no shields, just voice. You have 12 minutes until first hostile contact, he said. Want an extra layer of heroism? I want time. I connected the prototype to the artifact's skin pulses. An echo? Then I asked, in a language half mathematics, half longing, what is it to be indestructible? The answer came like the smell of a storm. It is to be remembered. On the other side, the Vhal activated their universal loudspeakers. Transparency or annihilation. The usual line, only this time, their voice faltered. The artifact was answering. For us, in Vhal, in every version of the language they had ever spoken, I spoke, and the artifact translated, amplified, sculpted. You are not standing before a station. You are standing before a mirror. Silence. In war, silence is rare. I used it. As ammunition, you imagine yourselves inevitable. We imagine ourselves improbable. Who do you think the universe prefers to tell stories about? The first deconstruction charges lit up a few kilometers away, but they didn't fire. Something in their command hesitated. When the story changes, even fingers tremble. Argo opened a covert channel. Ekaro, I'm detecting Vhal subchannels. They're discussing contact protocols. You've put them in an identity crisis. Good, let's make it worse. I told them about Earth, not as a flag or border, but as a habit, people who boil water just to remember they're alive, who name storms to pretend they're friends with chaos, who recite poems near engines so the engines might feel envy. The artifact turned my images into syntactic constellations, and the Vhal ships slowed a little more. I could hear them learning to stumble. You think efficiency is silence? I said, we think efficiency is rhythm. Between one and the other lies the pulse that made you and made us. Do you really think you were built to erase voices? An unauthorized message came from their side. A question, almost a whisper. What do you want? I wanted to say peace, but it felt flimsy. I wanted to say truce, but it felt short. So I said what I really wanted, that you make mistakes with us. Argo crackled in my digital ear. You just proposed to the most hierarchical species in the spiral that they embrace failure and the artifact. I asked it, amplified it like an anthem. They're hearing it in triple redundancy. One of the ships broke formation and came forward. For us, that's courage. For them, it's a crime. It lit a white beam in our direction. Not a weapon, not a scanner. A greeting. That's when the Vhal admiral replied, with all the bones of discipline. Inefficient. Eliminate. The fleet regrouped. The white beam went dark, and something heavy woke in my chest. The artifact vibrated, but stayed silent. The story which had been ours was collapsing into theirs. Argo, plan B. We don't have a plan B. Then let's invent one and pretend it always existed. I knew one thing. Vhal hated ambiguity. They lived on tables, on binary limits. If we became a question, they couldn't fit anywhere. Maybe. I shut off the prototype and, instead of asking the artifact, I started answering it. I fed it raw memories without diagrams, my father teaching me to tie a bottle rocket with fishing line, the first time I saw Saturn through a crooked telescope, the metallic taste of fear when I failed at the academy, and laughed anyway, the artifact. swallowed everything and spat out a single gravitational pulse, not toward the ships, but into the spaces between them. The sensors went blind for a second that stretched its own horizon. When vision returned, the Vhal formation was misaligned. Tiny angular deviations, almost artistic, Icaro Argos said. You just ruined their geometry. Perfection is fragile, I replied. And fragility sings. I spoke more, faster, like someone narrating to survive. Tales of resilience, statistics of miracles, bad jokes at the end of the world. The artifact danced with my memories and sowed micro-inconsistencies among them, systems refusing to agree with themselves. Clocks disagreeing by milliseconds, algorithms hearing fantasy for the first time. Vhal efficiency began to stutter. The Admiral tried one last command. It failed, not from lack of authority, but from an excess of humanity infiltrated a virus made of stories. The ship that had greeted us lit up again. Now, more ships repeated the gesture, out of sync, as if a new tradition was being born through error. The first Vhal spoke directly to me. The voice sounded like metal remembering it had once been dust. Propose protocol adjustment. Adopt margin for deviation. Include minority narrative. Translated into our tongue. They wanted to make mistakes. With us. Argo sighed, and I swear an AI can sigh. The station's still intact. So are you. And the word inefficient just started meaning alive in classical Vhal. We sealed an agreement. Nothing heroic. Nothing carved in monuments. Just a safety band around the unknown. A promise that no one would press the erase button before hearing one more story. They left our sector with a curiosity bordering on respect. We stayed with an artifact that turned memories into a hammer, without breaking anything. Days later, alone in the core, I asked the artifact one last thing. What is it to be human? The answer came softly, like cables warming. It is to be a question that never tires. I smiled, because in the end, that's what saved us. Not the weapon, not the shield, but the insistence on asking until the universe ran out of easy answers. If the Vhal are a chisel, we are water. The chisel cuts the stone. The water invents the valley.